So first of all then tonight, it will be Alex talking about the experience of the God realm.
Hello. Can you hear me at the back? Yes, smashing. Great. So I'll start with a brief description. Sangha talks about the God realm as the realm of happiness, of ease, of pleased, relaxed mental states, contentment, no obstacle to these mental states, a continuous flow of delight, of aesthetic experience in the arts and beauty and nature, and in higher states of meditative concentration, higher states of consciousness, that particularly emphasizes does not have access to the transcendental. And I thought it's not really my experience. It's not really my life. At work, tensions arises, difficulties arise. In relationships, I've got to work things out, and it's not always straightforward. Sometimes anxiety and fear emerge for no apparent reason. Surely I'm not in the God realm. I'm not in a continuous flow of ease and contentment. But then, nonetheless, I agreed to give this talk. So I was like, oh, all right, that's interesting. Something must have been going on. So I went through a bit of a process of trying to redefine what the God realm was for myself. And I arrived at the conclusion that I can get into a state of choosing pleasure as much as possible, a principle of choosing pleasure as an end in and of itself. And another way of talking about this is making our own small corner of samsara as comfortable as possible, trying to create a life where we're not impinged upon by dukkha, we're not impinged upon by difficulty. And one of the ways of talking about the God realm is by having everything we want. And I was thinking, well, I can't buy a Ferrari, I don't have loads of houses, so maybe not the God realm. But I can, if I need to buy a new pair of trainers, I can afford to buy a new pair of trainers. I can go on retreat, I do go on holiday. And seemingly the God realm is much closer to us than we're actually aware of. It's not a sort of reified, far away thing. If I need to buy a new flask to put tea in, I can go on Amazon and get one tomorrow. It's much closer. And so I started thinking about the God realm as something that I seek, or something that I sort of foray into, go on little God realm holidays for a minute or for an hour or for a day or two. And I just got back from a solitary retreat on Sunday. And on the way up to the solitary retreat, I thought, things have been a bit complicated recently. What I need more is a solitary holiday. So I went for a soliday instead of a solitary, already leaning a bit into the pleasure. And then on the way down, I went to Aldi and was doing my shopping for what I was going to eat. And I found myself in the cheese department. And without thinking too much about it, I bought 5 different cheeses. And a few days later, I was having my 4th cracker of brie, thinking, oh yeah, pleasure, this is really what I'm going for, isn't it? So yeah, it's much closer to me than I'd like to admit to myself. And as part of the brief, Paranita suggested talking about how these realms emerge for us, how I might step into the God realm. And one of the things I thought about was, in my life, there's been periods of time where I've dwelt in the more darker realms of sort of anxiety and depression for periods of time, for varying lengths. And something about being in those darker realms and life not being straightforward and really having to stay with it. There's an appreciation when I'm not in them of just isn't life amazing? Isn't it so pleasurable that that's not happening anymore? So there's something about, sort of more refined sense of, life's great, isn't it? And that can sometimes tip into a God realm of life's amazing all of the time. Wow. And so, there's one of the ways in which I can seek pleasure in an end of itself is anyone that knows me at all well knows I'm a massive extrovert, and I love being around people. and I delight in being around people. And two ways that I can pleasure can tip into something unskillful or something without awareness is when I can become a sloppy extrovert, or I can break introverts. And there's something, so being a sloppy extrovert is like, oh, you know, Richard, I've not seen Richard for ages, how amazing, so delighted. And I can just lose a sense of who I'm talking to. It's just like, Richard, you know, might be feeling a bit sensitive. I'm just like, oh, Richard, wow. I'm going to pour all of my love and energy into Richard and just be completely unaware of who I'm actually talking to. And then breaking introverts. I've done this at least once, and I have another friend that's done it a few times, where you're just talking to an introvert and you see them slowly recede into themselves. And you're just like, oh, right, I'm doing the extrovert thing. I need to like either, you know, stop or just walk away or something. But there's something in that. There's something so intoxicating about the pleasure that I lose sense of my actions have consequences, that I lose sense of there's a real life human being in front of me that has different needs to myself and isn't a massive extrovert, probably doesn't want me chatting at them. Another area this emerges for me is on retreat sometimes, and particularly when I first started going on retreats training for ordination. I was doing a particularly intense job at the time, be working sort of like 12-hour days, 4 days in a row, and then having a couple of days off and working nights and just like really going at it. And then I'd go on a retreat, and for the first day, meditation would just be like such a relief. It was such a relief to not have to think about what I was going to do, not have to attend to people, just got to spend time with my friends in meditation. Meditation was like very pleasurable. It's like, oh, this is nice. Oh, how delightful. And then the next day would come along, kind of be in meditation. Like, oh, wow, God, this is amazing. It's still happening. Wow, amazing. But the pleasure would stop being satisfying. It would become intoxicating. And I really had to ask myself why I was there. Was I there because I wanted to just like be in a relieved state and not have to look after patients and be interested in my colleagues? Or was I there to do something more significant with my life? And in Buddhism, we have an element of mindfulness called samprajanya, which means continuity of purpose. And after a couple of times this happened on retreat, where I'd just be like, you know, not really doing the retreat, I'd just be like, oh, yeah, everything's great. I came across a phrase from Arloka, quite a senior order member, that describes the purpose of retreats. And it's in creative dialogue with order members, we clarify our understanding of the Dharma and work out how to implement that understanding at a higher and refined levels. And so whenever I would go on retreat, I would remind myself of that. I would remind myself why I was going on retreat. I'm going on retreat here to more deeply understand the Dharma and more deeply understand how to live that out in my life. And that principle of reminders of samprajanya, of how to cultivate how to cultivate an awareness of what we're doing with our lives, why we're doing it, has bled out into other areas of my life. On my wardrobe, I have the first 3 precepts translated in ways that really work for me. This is directly from my wardrobe. An absolute affirmation of being. When I give myself, and do one thing with this life. And there's something about that way of talking about the precepts that really I can really take in or something. They really bring me on board. And sometimes the God realm can get a bad rap, and I think we shouldn't vilify pleasure. Pleasure is necessary and really important. Sangha says about the spiritual life, we must really enjoy it. We must enjoy our spiritual lives. And I think he says that because if we enjoy something, we want to do it, and it becomes sustainable. So yeah, we need to find pleasure in our spiritual lives to make it sustainable. And there's something about a mind that can take pleasure on and find pleasure. It's more pliable, it's more flexible, we can relate to others more effectively if we're already, there's some pleasure going on for us. So, in conclusion, not to seek pleasure in an end of itself, and pleasure is still important.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for going first. I've got a really loud voice, so am I really loud with a microphone? Okay. Well, funnily enough, when Paranita asked me to give the talk and I was given the animal realm, I kind of thought, well, I don't really know the animal realm. So there's obviously a bit of a thing about being given a talk and thinking, I don't know what that's like. And of course, part of the process of reflecting is that you kind of realize that I'm probably spending quite a lot of time actually in the animal realm. So yeah, thank you for sort of asking me to do it. So yeah, I think the talks work quite well together actually. So the animal realm, just to recap, so it's the 5th segment on the wheel of life. And it depicts the world of animals. And these are animals that are both wild, but also domesticated animals. And they're in the moment, and they're reasonably placid in the image. And you might even think they look quite content, because in the animal realm, your kind of basic needs are being met. So your need for food, for sleep, for sex, and for other material comforts, they're all being satisfied. I actually spent quite a lot of the time thinking about this talk, looking at my 2 rather overweight cats and kind of thinking, that's looking pretty good to me, actually. But anyway, one of the things about the animal realm is that there are only sense objects. So that is it. It's a realm without purpose, and it's a realm without any other meaning than meeting our basic kind of needs. And animals can't do anything about that, but actually human beings can. So I kind of wanted to talk about kind of physical places, which to me can feel a bit like the animal realm. So places that I go to, and also a couple of ways in which I feel I can behave what I've described as like an animal-like human, where I kind of feel like my animal tendencies are kind of there. So Sangha describes the animal realm as a place without vision or culture. And the first thing that came to my mind basically was a service station. I'm sure we've all been to service stations, and basically their only function is for us to essentially eat, go to the toilet. I don't think there's any sex at service stations. I've not experienced that. Maybe missing out on something. So to go to the toilet, to eat, and to take a break. And for those of you that have been on retreat, the pain of going into a service station after retreat. I was on a solitary retreat recently, and I went into a moto which had anyway, I won't tell you why I chose it, but it was really tough kind of being having been in a state where I hadn't seen anyone, and I'd been in relative kind of good concentrated states. And then I was looking at one of those sort of screens, just kind of trawling through a Leon kind of menu on a massive screen, just kind of trying to work out how I could be human actually in that kind of environment, and kind of realizing they're not really designed for you to be human in, actually. They're kind of these really strange kind of spaces. And the other thing that Sangha says is that actually consumerism itself is a kind of animal-like kind of urge. And anyone who spent any time in Meadow Hall, or Meadow Hell, as we call it in my family, will know that these environments are really complex. It's really complicated to feel that you're anything other than operating in this kind of consuming, kind of physical, kind of pleasure kind of way. And there may obviously be pleasure. I'm not saying that there's not pleasure in going to these places, but actually there is nothing else. And it's very hard to find anything else apart from some sort of body sort of gratification. And I suppose I was sort of thinking about my own sort of experience, really, of kind of the fact that when our bodily needs aren't gratified, it's really complicated. So I've got this idea basically that I need to sleep. And that actually I can't function unless I've had sleep. And as a child, my dad used to tell me that I was born tired. So actually, the pursuit of sleep is a big kind of part of my life, making sure I have enough sleep. But essentially, I have a view that, and actually one of the things that I wrote is that when I'm not sleeping, I can spend quite a lot of the time being awake by thinking about how awful the day is going to be because I'm not sleeping. So it's a really awful sort of cycle, you know. And some people have heard this story, but I'd had a particularly bad night of sleep. I mean, generally I sleep, actually. I've probably not slept like 6 times in my life, but I'm telling you about it because it was so horrendous. But I actually called a friend and I said, "Is Imogen there?" And she was like, "Well, you are Imogen." I was so sort of like not quite able to function. Anyway, my point is that when your bodily needs aren't met, you can sort of have an idea that the day is going to fall apart. And I was sort of thinking about the story that I'm telling myself, which is essentially that because I'm tired, I can't be in good mental states. And then I thought, well, am I going to let good mental states depend on whether or not I'm tired? And that is something I work with. And, you know, how can you be tired and be hungry and still be in reasonably good mental states? Yeah. So the last thing really, I think, was about the fact that in the human animal realm, you willfully narrow your horizons and you refuse to look at the meaning and purpose of your life. And in reference to my cats, particularly domesticated animals, you can feel that there's a lot of comfort in the animal realm. But there is also a real narrowness of focus. And I'm definitely someone that I feel looks for comfort and ease. In a way, I'm probably more kind of, I look for that in my life. I look for comfort, I look for ease, I look for kind of simplicity in a way. And that often involves looking outside of myself. So whether that's with other people, whether that's through food, you know, telephone, being busy, work, I kind of often feel like I'm distracting myself from feeling discomfort, actually. And I think in the animal realm, there's a lot of comfort, potentially. And although these things can bring temporary relief, you know, through feeling uncomfortable and going outside of yourself, essentially, they're not a solution. And I sort of feel I've come to know this more and more through my practice. So to a large extent, and I think this is interesting in terms of Alex's talk, I'm sort of almost going to say the opposite to what Alex said, that actually you can't really avoid discomfort in your sort of spiritual life necessarily. And although there can be pleasure, there may also be discomfort. And this is something that I feel like I work with quite a lot, about sort of, in a way, being in the discomfort and not always looking for comfort. Yeah, I sort of feel like that actually my Buddhist practice actually really challenges me to be both at home with discomfort, but also to be at home in my own company, which I think is something that, you know, maybe I've avoided actually. So yeah, and then the other aspect, in a way, I suppose, of what Sangha is saying about the animal realm is that it's a way in which we can keep ourselves small, in a way, by staying safe and staying comfortable. That so much of the time, as sort of practitioners, we might potentially fear what we are capable of being. And again, I sort of feel this is something that I have done, in a sense, for an easy, comfortable life. So by avoiding the bigger questions, the kind of questions like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with all this? I think kind of by avoiding that, in a way, you trap yourselves. I trap myself in the animal realm. Yeah, and I suppose just the final thing, I think maybe I've got a minute, is that the animal realm is given a book. So there's a blue Avalokiteshvara, and he gives to the animal realm a book. And that book represents knowledge, and it's the bridge between being an animal being and being a spiritual being. And I suppose all of us will have different examples of what that book might represent. But for me, there's the sort of humanizing effect, obviously, of the Dharma, but also it really is culture for me, and the way in which culture, in a way, lifts my experience to something other than the kind of service station, indoor shopping center kind of being. So it's sort of dance, it's theatre, it's music. And I was thinking about dance because so much of the animal realm is about bodily satisfaction, but like dance is such a kind of a civilized sort of expression of the body, but sort of so different, obviously. Yeah. So I was just going to conclude with, again, something that Sangha said, which, yeah, really resonated with me. To be in the animal realm is to deny the creative potential in all of us. To be in the animal realm is to disregard the higher possibilities of our human life.
Okay, my voice is okay? Oh, a bit louder, what? Oh, all right, okay, it's all okay. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about the human realm, and the advantage or the feature of talking about the human realm is I don't have to point to a little square on the diagram over there. I hope this is it. You know, you're all here with me in the human realm. So what's possible, as you're already here, if you want to know about the human realm, you look at what a particular quality of what your experience is. What Sangha talked about when he was introducing, you know, the human realm in terms of the different realms was what things to notice and look at to kind of really get a feel for what it is to be human. And what it comes down to is a fundamental centrality. So you've got a basic centrality. You've got pleasure and pain evenly mixed. But what's particularly significant about that is they're both mixed, and you have the experience of one replacing the other. So that's different from all the other realms in which one kind of experience tends to predominate. The particular advantage that we have in this human realm is we can see the weather. We can see the clouds as they come up. And that can be a a door to freedom. It's like you're going about your business and you get the first stirrings of some other realm that's not the human realm. And if you're alert and you're mindful, you can spot it. You can see what's happening. I mean, in a way, that's kind of what we're practicing to be able to do as Buddhists. Is one of the things that increasingly you get to see how to do. You can see the first stirrings of something that's not other than human, and you can choose not to go there. And that has made an enormous difference to me, because I started off life with someone very much subject to severe anxiety, emotional difficulties, and through combining therapy with Buddhist practice, I was able to spot when the anxiety from the past or the pattern of behavior was just beginning to stir. And I could be, because of Buddhist mindfulness, I could stay in touch with my body, and I could detect the bodily sensations at the point where they're still just a bodily sensation. I could kind of spot. And I knew this is the beginning of panic or depression. And I could kind of see it and spot it. And I can say, well, I can choose. Because I've seen it, I can actually choose for something different. And I think that there is a lot in seeing. There's two aspects involved in this seeing. There's I call it a cognitive seeing, where you see what's going on, but then what you need is a transformative seeing, which is a kind of seeing what's happening in such a way that it doesn't have to happen. So I think it's a bit like, I think that one of the things I've got from meditation is I don't take my experience so seriously. In a sense, like when I meditate, I know I can sit down and all sorts of feelings, emotions, worlds can pass, come and go. But in a meditative state, you kind of you see that you're aware. In some way, I kind of think, well, one of the advantages of having a meditation practice is you can really feel that centrality of being a human being, because particularly when you're meditating, you have experience, but you're not at the mercy of what your experience is. I mean, Sangha actually, he said that the key thing about the human realm is what they call self-reflexive awareness. That we are aware, but we can be aware that we're aware. And being aware that you're aware is that extra element we can bring to seeing that actually makes a real change. Because we think, well, here is like the engine revving of this experience that's inviting you to go with it. And with reflexive consciousness, you can see, well, I don't have to get on. Because you actually you can spot the moment when you actually get on the vehicle and it's ready to, it drives off. And once you're in the vehicle and it's driving, then you've missed, you're on that journey. But you can catch the moment when it's just kind of waiting for you. It's kind of inviting you to get on it. And you can actually have the experience without the experience being in charge of you. And I think that's a kind of distinctive feature of the human realm. That, I mean, we can have experiences that resemble any of the other realms, but while we remain in the human realm, no particular experience is in charge and tells us what to do. Is that we maintain that freedom. One thing about the this diagram is when you have the Buddha standing outside of the wheel on this side, and he's pointing to this circle with a hair in it. So this represents the moon, and this hair is the hair in the moon, which arises from a Jataka story where a traveler appears to a hare in this Jataka story, and he's very hungry. He's desperate for food. The hare has no food to give him. So what he does is he makes a fire and he jumps in it and cooks himself ready for the meal. And well, the traveler was not just any ordinary traveler. It happened to be Indra, the king of the gods. And he was so impressed with the generosity and willingness of the hare to give himself that he decided that everyone should know about it. So what he did was he drew the picture of the hare in the moon. So when you look up at a full moon, what you're seeing, it's not the man in the moon, it's the hare in the moon. So because the idea was that you look at the moon and you can see a symbol that represents the vow of the bodhisattva. In fact, the moon shines, and in a way, the whole series is about the Great Escape. And when the hare leapt into the flames, the hare was making his escape from self-centeredness, self-preoccupation. And that, that is the great escape. Okay.